welcome back. We're going to cover lots of stuff in today's video. We get new commercial assets, new vehicle assets, police service upgrades, and of course a deadly but beautiful coral beach. After the controversial development of the open mine quarry on Bali High's main island, this budding island saw civic unrest explode on the streets as protesters spiralled out of control.
Down with this sort of thing! Careful now.
To quell the uprising, the island's government announced an immediate investment in a modern, if not somewhat over-the-top police force. The perpetrators were swiftly rounded up and peace ensued. So we're going to pick up here with the creation of the expanded police facilities. I reckon the most natural spot to get the police upgrade is to tuck it in behind the existing police station. That existing one is not functional, but the one that we're going to create today certainly will be. I'm going to use the smallest police asset that we've got, and then I'm going to recolour it to try and match up what we've got there already. Now we're going to have a very first peek at one of Dome's new vehicle assets. I believe this is made possible as models. You can now add decals, to the vehicle mesh and editor. This pickup is 100% perfect for our build in Bali High. It's exactly the kind of police vehicle you'd see in Fiji. Well, it's pretty similar. I'm still going to keep my little prop one that I built in front of the first police station, but I'll maybe look to replace that if these vehicles come as static props later down the line. There are a few more vehicles to show off, and I'll get to them before we finish up the video today. So for the detailing on this building, I'm going to get that done now so I can kind of move on without thinking too much about it as we crack on with the rest of the build. I'm going to focus mainly on the concrete parking area to the rear. I really wanted to get a bit of use out of some of, again, those new road decals. So first, I'll get the surfaces in place, and then I'll stick the decals on top of them. I'm going to use a pretty wide variety of road patches. This will give us a bit of a patchwork of different surfaces, and it should give a nice kind of unique looking area to the rear of the building. Although this is a new facility, I'm imagining here that this building was repurposed and maybe converted into a police station, and that's why the state of the asphalt is in its current condition. I'm going to add a bit of weathering decals to the roof as well, and it should add to that sort of worn effect. It's a nice pack, this one. There are also little joint decals there as well, and you can really add some very exacting street decoration here. Little cracks and little weird edgings as well. Really nice, really nice. Now you can combine them with some of the Sully's Road decals, and then we can just continue to build up the layers here. I reckon where the asphalt drops in elevation as it kind of reaches the buildings behind the new one, I think it might be a candidate for maybe the asphalt cracking at that particular position. So I'm going to add some of the cracked decals, and that should give me the effect that I'm looking for in that little section. That big supermarket in the back is looking a little plain. I reckon what it needs is a Piccana poster. I think that's a pretty decent colour match as well, isn't it? Lovely. So I went ahead and got all those weathered decals on the roof, and really all that was left was just to finish up the area and add a few traffic props and whatnot in the corner of the car park. We'll kind of fill a gap here. And I guess that police station, they can use it for traffic incidents or whatever. So with that in place, we'll crack on with the next section. Now I wanted to swing quickly over to the hospital, and the first thing I'm going to show you is another one of these new vehicles, and this time it's going to be one of the death care vehicles. So if you've seen the previous episode, we created this hospital, and you know that we used the little black van as a private ambulance. So that's kind of what I would expect the private morgue ambulance really to look like. Dom's used the same vehicle, slightly different colour, and he's added his own decals on the side as well, and I think that will be a great fit. And again, I'll look to swap that out if we get these vehicles as props. So what I plan on doing here in the hospital is just very quickly create a car park. I think it probably makes most sense on this gap here, and as luck would have it, one of the newer ones fits absolutely perfectly. I'm going to blend it into the surroundings, and I'm going to give it a border of small palms. I'm going to sink them into the ground to make them even smaller. Now, the reason I want to swing over here and talk about this build is that up until now I've avoided sinking trees and bushes into the ground, and really it's due to the excessive sway that you get within the game. It looks decent, but for me it's just far too much movement on the ground, and it's kind of accentuated because you only see the tops of them. There's more movements. It's kind of exaggerated and it's really exaggerated when you speed up the video as well. So if you're watching any of my videos, the vast majority of them, they are speeded up to different levels. it's really noticeable, and frankly it's kind of really off-putting as well. So Brucey Boy's come up with a solution to this, and that's a mod called Tree Winds Controller. It's in testing phase at the moment, but hopefully that'll be on PDX soon. I've not had any issues with it, so we're off to a great start. With the hospital extended out with some car parking facilities, I think we can crack on with the next bit now. Based on your feedback, I'm going to replace some of the equipment that we've used on the rugby pitch. Now, this was left as a YouTube comment. I can't find the comment again. I was going to shout out the person who left it, but it is lost. So if you're watching, thank you very much. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the flagpole and the soccer goals for the assets. We're going to push them together, and we're going to basically recolor the poles to match the football asset. We'll make it all the same colour. We'll make them white. So this will give us a multi-use pitch that can be used for, football or rugby. And I think I much prefer the look of this one. The next addition is going to be another custom asset. This one was made specifically for Bali High. If you enjoy custom assets, you'll probably know about Tygon's rail infrastructure pack. Really cool assets. I'm not going to be able to fit them in this build, unfortunately. We just don't have the space for railway. However, Tygon kindly made a fully functioning diesel power plant, which is going to take the place of the existing non-functional asset. Really cool. This thing generates enough electricity to power the island and then some, and it's such a cool little addition, and even better that it's the same asset that I had there already, so I don't need to redo the decals either. This is something you're much more likely to find in these small Pacific islands. Obviously I've used the wind turbines, and that is probably jumping ahead a little bit as they don't really exist too much, as far as I can tell anyway, in the South Pacific. So this asset is going to just connect to the low voltage electricity infrastructure, and we're good to go. Dead easy. So I'm going to swing over to the harbour, and there's a couple of things that I want to update here. So Amin Mahbub has uploaded a decal pack which includes shipping brands. So here I'm going to add the Maersk decals onto the side of our shipping containers, and we'll make a little bit of a headquarters there in the port as well. There are also some Amazon decals, so I'm going to make a very modest distribution centre here in the port. Obviously for Amazon you would expect something significantly bigger, but I think it's kind of appropriate, for the size of the island that we've got here. Remember, in this build I'm happy to add things and redo things as we go along. It's a pretty small build, and that sort of activity is pretty manageable, The port has one last addition to be added, and it's a fun one. I was playing Skylines with my 7-year-old niece, and she really enjoyed spawning seagulls, and I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure I even knew they were in the game, but actually adding a good number of these spawners does add quite a bit of life and a bit of realism to the port area. Cool addition, something I'm definitely going to be using a little bit more in the future, but yeah. Nice. I went ahead and tidied up the shipping lane. The boats coming into the harbour were doing a weird U-turn. They were clipping through the actual harbour asset, so that needed to be sorted out, and we should have some better looking animations as the ships come in and out of port. To prepare the beach area, I'm going to remove the Mapmaker's beach surface. I'll go and extend that dirtier highway road, along the beachfront. That's just tracing over with the surface. And then I'm going to pick a spot where I want Dome's Roadhouse to look over the water. I've been sitting in this asset for so long, but I've been concentrating on the other city over the past month or so I'm really happy to finally get the opportunity to use this one. This one's available in PDX mod, so feel free to go download it if you want. Obviously, usual warning applies if you're using custom assets. Now I'm also going to go ahead and take a little spot for a car park and create this a little bit away from the roadhouse, and that's going to be for anybody who's not frequenting that establishment. Now for the main beach, I'm going to use Sully's beach pack assets, and it's really nice to actually get the opportunity to finally use these things as they were intended. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using them to full effect, but I'm going to have a crack at them nonetheless. I've used the riverbed assets pretty regularly in different spots throughout various builds. It's really useful. But this is the first time I've actually used it for a beach, so it'll be interesting to see how things turn out. In the order that I believe they should be done, I'm going to get each of the surfaces put in their place, and then once they're in place and I've got them overlapping, I'm going to use the decals to really just try and seamlessly change this from one surface to the other, but we'll see how we get on with that. I do want the sand effect to spill into the road a little bit, and I think given that I'm taking the beach right up to the asphalt, you would certainly expect to see that. Let's crack on and get all this blended in. Okay, and I think for a first go, I don't think that's too bad of an effort. What do you think? To complement this beauty of an asset, I'm going to sort of expand it. I'm going to use the picker and grab various props from the existing car park on the left hand side. Then I'm going to plop them over on the right hand side as well. I'll also grab some of the vegetation and try and repeat the look of what Dom's created for there as well. I'll be using plenty of decals where I can, and I'm going to try and generally blend surfaces together and try and make it look nice and natural. To give the impression that this is all one place, I'm going to align all of the individual bits, so the add-on car park and the main asset itself. I'm going to line it all with barrows, and we'll run that right along the development area and along the car park with the little benches as well. So hopefully anybody looking at this for the first time, they might just think it's one big asset. Well, maybe not, but that's what I'm trying to achieve. Let's crack on with that. A big element of this build is the creation of a coral reef along the beach. The idea for this came from Harbour Master Jay. He pinged me quite a few months back actually when I started the series, and he was showing me how this could be made. Now I knew from them that I wanted to have it in the island, so many years ago I visited Coral Beach in Hawaii. Snorkeling there was a wonderful experience and I wanted to try and recreate that particular beach. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the place, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't find it online either, so that was out the window, but I did try my best to try and recreate it from memory at least anyway. Now if you're interested in the props for this, it's Jay's prop cairn, we get boulders, there's a couple of different rubble assets, some mixed prop vegetation, and a handful of potted plants as well. I'll also add quite a few decals at the end, try and smoothen out the edges a bit, you know, on the coastal side. You can't just use the normal cairns that you would maybe find in Find It, the water will destroy them, and if you're planning on recolouring any vegetation, you're going to need Koshik's prop vanilla vegetation mod, as that'll allow you to recolour the plants individually. Now this really was all a bit of trial and error. I used a bit of a mix of using the prop brush, some of them are placed by hand. Don't know if I'm entirely satisfied with it all, to be honest, but I think 2 hours working on it was enough in the end. I think I could have probably spent another 2 hours on it without making that much of a difference really, you know, for the overall look. I'm sure one of you guys watching will come up with something really spectacular with it, I've got no doubt about that. As you'll see here, the props need to be coloured one by one by hand, and I think I'm pretty patient with that sort of thing, but that patience was getting tested. Progress was slow and kind of takes a toll on your wrist as well, so definitely one to be kind of splitting up and taking a bit of a break. One tip I might give is that the props at the front will look quite bright depending on the terrain. You can reduce the height as you see fit, you know, to reduce the vibrancy of those recoloured props, and that's exactly what I did here as well. I'm going to add a bit of wildlife to the beach. We've got some dolphins, we've got some sharks, and that should make things pretty interesting if you decide to have a snorkel along this particular reef. So yeah, that's it. We've got a coral reef now. Sweet. We'll go ahead and expand the island's forest canopy. I think I mentioned on the industry build that I plan on having a thick forest canopy whenever there's no development on the island. So I'll crack on with that. We'll get it sorted above the beach now, and I'm going to use the picker and just ensure that I've got the same mix of trees, big palms at the tops, a few oak trees here and there, and plenty of small apple trees and plenty of small palm trees at lower levels as well. With a fair bit of this build done and ready to go, I wanted to add a little bit of beach detailing. Now I'm not going to go mad with this, as the island is still pretty small in terms of overall footprint and population. I think I'd like to keep this beach a little bit more on the quiet side, you know, for the time being. Now as the island fills out, I think I'm going to be adding more activity, and I want to try and sort of match the life and the growth of the island to the, you know, the growth and the business of the beach. Here I'm going to create a single tiki hut. Again, this is one of Jay's custom assets as well, and I'm going to run above or along rather a custom walkway, you know, along the beach to access it as well. I want to make sure that that car park is usable, and I want to make sure that it's going to look the part. So I'm going to add plenty of decals and a few props here and there, and we'll add it as we just go along. For this section of the video, I'm going to put the beach build, the tiki build, along with the main detail and time lapse together. I'm going to be using some of Static Noises decals, just a few of them. I'll also be using Crypto Gamer's beach decals. Again, nothing too much, but some she shells and seaweed effect and whatnot. The seaweed, I'll probably add more of that at the edge of the coral to at least try and soften things out a bit there under the water. I'll be using Sunny Scunny's beach groins. I'm going to use them as fencing, in fact, along the road. I think they're quite a nice fit. So I'm going to turn up the music a little bit. We'll run through the time lapse, and I'll catch up with you in a few minutes and we'll get them sharks in. Okay, we'll do a quick review of the build. You saw me add seagulls around the harbour earlier. Now it's time to add some marine life down at this beach. So I'm going to jump in and add some sharks, and we're going to add some dolphins. And all you need to do is just search for them and find it. You'll see the spawners. Now I don't know about you, but I do enjoy seeing a bit of life in these builds. Oh, there's also a spawner for sea wildlife, I think it's called, and I think that just spawns in some birds again. Now obviously that's going to be a bit terrifying for the Sims, but I like it. Now be warned, I've situated this pretty far away from the shore, but these things will swim through land. So if you're going to be having this sort of thing in your own build, have a play about with the distances and see what works for you. I did try the hangout area trick that you might use, you know, with farmyard animals. It basically puts a perimeter that they won't go out. Didn't work, you know, with the swimming animals. They just ignore it, they go wherever they want, you know. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited to see these modded vehicles make an appearance. That's going to open up a whole new load of possibilities, and I'm happy to share with you the ones I can get my hands on right now. So I'm smashing it with these vehicles and with the roadhouse, of course, as well, and that's going to be the beginning of a little settlement, if you like, in this part of the map. So it's really nice to get that started today. Super nice asset that, and given the fact that it's all functional as well, you know, makes it even better. Big shout out to Jay for all the custom assets. There's a ton of these things that we can use, and we'll continue to do so as we go through the build. I reckon the little improvements we've made to the hospital, police facilities, the harbour were all worth it. You know, some big additions and some small ones. Remember, I'm open to ideas. You guys have come up with loads already. I do read them all. I try and respond to them all as well. So do keep them coming. You never know, might end up in the build. But that's it for me. You guys have a good one. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.